Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Thomas and welcome back to the channel. Glad to have you here for another video. Got my sweet Broncos gear on here today. I'm super stoked for the season this year. Unfortunately, it's looking like we might not have a season with everything going on with the pandemic, but we will see. But anyway, I know you're not here for Broncos related content, unfortunately. Maybe an idea for another channel, we'll see. But today I wanted to cover a topic that I've covered already once before, work from home, but it's gotten a lot of good traction. It was one of my first videos. A lot of people have responded to that, viewed it, and commented on it. So I figured it would be a good time to cover some more work from home content. I will link the video here from the previous one that I did that talks more about general practices of working from home. But this one's going to cover today some of the equipment you might need, you might want, things like suggestions on backgrounds, how to present yourself on a call, whatever it might be, just the generals around the actual mechanics of being on camera. So really overall, you don't need a whole lot. You can get away with the cheapy webcam in your MacBook. Unfortunately, MacBooks still come with a 720p webcam in today's day and age with the expensive price tag that they have. Unbelievable. But anyway, that's a separate problem. For those of you on MacBooks, that is not really a viable option. You don't look great unless you have really good audio going on and really good lighting, and then it kind of makes up for the 720p factor. But even if you present yourself well at the office, you do a good job in presentations, you come across well at work, when you're working from home and you're kind of forced into this working from home situation, it can be a lot different. If you don't have the good lighting and the good audio and the good video, you just don't look professional. With the recent surge in work from home kind of around the globe, a lot of people have done videos on this. A lot of people say, hey, your webcam will work just fine. And it can. It can. If you have good lighting, you have a decent webcam. If you can get 1080p on your webcam, that's even better. But the biggest thing that helps to improve that is a little bit of audio and better lighting. You don't want to be doing these calls in dark rooms. You don't want to be doing these calls with a super bright light on your face sitting out on your back porch. You really want as controlled of lighting as possible to give yourself the best feel and the best coverage on your face to really light yourself up. I'm going to put a quick graphic here on the screen that I put together to kind of show the three different parts. I put this in a Venn diagram. You can see that we have lighting being one of these, you have audio being one of these circles, and then you also have video being one of these circles. Now, I'm going to talk about all three of these. Video is the one that can kind of be moved around a little bit. I'm going to cover some different video devices, some different cameras that you can use, but video is the one that could really kind of go to the wayside as long as you have something decent, and it's also the most expensive part of this Venn diagram. So if you need to skimp on one of these areas, I would definitely say the video is probably the piece that you could skimp on a little bit, but audio is king. Audio is what matters. If people can't hear you on the call, or there's background crackling, or they hear a buzzing or a humming noise, that can get super annoying when you're on the other end or you're in a professional business call with lots of people, and it's very clear who is the problem because it shows who is making all the noise, right? And you get muted by someone else. It's not a good thing. Next would be lighting, of course. That's super important. That is just as important, but a little bit below audio. Lighting, great lighting can make a crappy webcam look pretty decent. So lighting is super important, even if you just get one light for your face, or if you have a whole setup like I do where you have two lights and like a key light and all that stuff, a hair light. You can go crazy in this, but the important thing is just to have some type of light. And then of course the camera, which I'm going to cover here. I'm going to go over some different options for this. You can get away with a webcam, but I would prefer something a little different. So we're here on my desktop. I wanted to show you a couple screens and kind of blaze through some things here, recommendations that I have. This is something that a lot of people have been recommending lately, is Logitech cameras. Unfortunately, they're sold out across the internet. People are price gouging on these because so many people have purchased these in order to work from home and have a little better setup. But I just wanted to kind of briefly go through these. I know a lot of people recommend the C922 or the C920, and those are okay options. I'm going to flip real quick here to my view. I actually have this exact camera, and I'm going to flip here real quick between the two to show you the difference. And here it is. I switched over to the webcam. You can see it's just not great. I mean, it's the same lighting. It's a little blurry. The stuff's washed out. I'm also using the audio from this camera now, so it probably sounds a little washed out as well, a little tinny. Just not a great solution. It doesn't look great. A lot of people recommend the C922 or the C920. When you get up into the 1080p, it looks a little better. They have this 4K option here. I think this is more specific to the new Apple XDR displays that just came out because it's magnetic and it can hook onto the top of it. I'm sure it works with other ones, but that at least you're stepping up to 4K, and I think it's got a little better lighting. But when you're looking at a $199 price tag there, that's, you know, you can get into some entry-level DSLRs at that point. You can get into some other cameras. So not the biggest fan of this solution in general. Okay, so moving over here to more of a ultimate wish list item. This is God mode for working from home and having the best image that you possibly can. I suppose not God mode. You could get $2,000-$3,000 Canon camera if you want. I fully understand this is very expensive, but a lot of you may already have something like this. You may already have a DSLR that you use to shoot family photos or shoot the family dog or the cat or sports games, whatever. If you already have a DSLR of any kind, really, it might work. The biggest thing that you need is the clean HDMI output. So that's what you want to look for. And you also want it to be able to run off of some system other than a battery, preferably, because then otherwise you have to deal with batteries during calls and things like that. The Sony series, you're able to hook up directly to power and it will just work like a webcam. You flip it on when you're ready to go and it's ready to go as well. And the clean HDMI output specifically is important, and Sony does a good job with supporting this with a lot of their cameras, is that that's the stuff that's out around the edge of the camera that you'll see. So like your f-stop or any filters you have on, your audio levels, standby, the little graphs that you see, any of that stuff that's around the edge when you look through a camera lens or you look through the viewfinder, that will also appear in a feed or stream to something like Teams or Slack or Skype. So you need to make sure that the camera supports clean HDMI output and that you also turn it on in the camera itself to make sure that it's not appearing in your view. You can also use a GoPro. Maybe you bought a GoPro for a family trip to Disneyland or wherever, and you have a GoPro laying around that you never use and you want to get some use out of it. Even a GoPro will do better than a standard webcam if you hook it up correctly and if you have the right hardware that you would need for your computer, your laptop, or whatever to be able to connect it and make it work. Okay, you decided to go with the Sony camera. This would apply to any of the cameras that you pick. You need to find a lens for this. It might come with a kit lens. If it's something like an 18 to 135 or something like that, it might work. What you're trying to do is you want to get really close. You want to be able to have a wide angle and get a close shot on yourself, but having a wide angle gives a lot of background, makes things feel a little bit more professional. And then you also want a really low f-stop. Again, don't have time to go over f-stop and everything about cameras here. Look it up, do a little more research, Google things. It's a pro tip there. But having a low f-stop will help you blow out your background. So it gives you that fuzzy kind of professional look that a lot of people are looking for, called bokeh, however you say it. Another thing to look up, whole entire world of internet out there covering that topic. You need some type of lens, right? You can get away with almost anything. Any lens is going to be better. Putting it on DSLR and taking video with that is just going to improve your game heavily. But if you're able to invest in a camera lens that's something like this, that's got a lower f-stop on it, and something like an 18, maybe a 10 millimeter, 16, 18, 20, 22, something like that, like a low number there, you're going to get a lot better result. So remember, this is a camera as well. So if you invest in this setup, you spend the money on this, you not only have a good streaming setup or a good setup to use on Zoom and Skype and all the others, you also have a camera that you can use to record family events. You can do video on this. You can do still pictures on this. You can take family photos or portraits. It's dual purpose. So if you do invest in the camera, it's a good investment long term. Okay, so you decided to invest in the camera. You decided to go with the Sony. Whichever camera you get, you're going to need a way to mount it. You're going to need a way to have it above your computer so that you're able to get a good shot of yourself. You don't want a shot from down below. It's unflattering, can cause weird shadows and things like that. You don't want a shot from above because it gives the viewer a weird sense of looking above you or you looking up at them. So you really want a nice even shot, kind of like my camera is right now. That's the setup you want. So how do you achieve that? Well, I'm going to put a picture here of how my setup is, but I have mine mounted on a Manfrotto arm. Now, again, I love my tech. I love my equipment. I spent some money on this thing, right? I'm going to show you this right here. The Manfrotto arm. Again, this is sold out right now, so I don't even remember what I paid for this originally. It was nowhere close to 130, but things are just skyrocketing on Amazon and other sites. It was like 50 bucks, but this thing is rock solid. It holds it still. You don't see a lot of shaking and wiggling going on when I'm moving around, which is also important. You don't want to be shaking around on a web call, but this just mounts on your desk or on a monitor arm, or I think you can even mount it to the wall and then extend your camera out so you're able to get a nice, good, even shot on yourself. important part of any business call is going to be being able to see the person on the other end. So lighting becomes very important in these situations. And I mention this because we need to be able to pick up on visual cues from other humans when we're on calls like this, when we're on a Skype call, when we're on a Teams call, because you need to be able to see when their visual cues and their facial expressions are telling you that they're wrapping up and you can begin talking. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of this like walking over each other where like, oh wait, oh sorry for interrupting. Okay, no, you go. Oh, like there's just so much inefficiency on calls already. Anything you can do to help prevent that just makes things better. And this is especially important when you have calls of, 5, 10, 15, 20 people. It becomes even harder to pick up on visual cues. And there's no way in this software that at least I'm aware of to like really call out yourself and raise your hand. I know there's raise your hand features and things like that, but they just never seem to work. People aren't usually paying attention to those, and you're trying to keep the call flowing with audio, and you don't want to take the time to pay attention to the raise your hand feature. And so there needs to be a better solution for that in the future overall. But for us that are trying to get on business calls right now, what we need to do is have good lighting so that from our end, we are displaying a good video feed and people are able to pick up on our visual cues and our facial expressions. You need to properly light your facial features so that people can accurately see you and you're not in the dark on the other side of the webcam. So I use something like this. This is what I use for my setup. This again, probably way overkill, but again, a good investment if you want to maybe do photography in the future. Something like this will help you get a long ways towards taking some pretty professional family photos. You can buy these in single packs, you can buy them in double packs. There are plenty of other options out there that are cheaper, and lighting is not something you need a fancy brand name on. It's not something that you need to be particular. If you can get a bicolor, it allows you to control the different types of light that come in, whether it's cool or warm light, so you can get a lot different effects. But really, any kind of light. You can get a Home Depot light. I've seen a lot of people use the cheap $20 work light from Home Depot or whatever. That will work as well. You just need something on your face, and you don't want it too bright. You need some lighting control on there as well, so that's important. You need to be able to adjust the different levels so that you're able to not blow your face out. You don't want it too bright, or that's just the opposite, right? It's the same problem as it being too dark. It's just on the other end of it, right? So this is what I have. They work pretty well. They work on battery. They work on AC power as well, so I just have mine plugged in all the time. But you need some kind of good lighting, right? You need stuff to make it look interesting and to be able to see your background. And then I also included this in here if you want to get fancy. These are the colors that I'm using back here, the blue and the pink. These Falcon Eyes F7 pocket light. These are little portable lights. You can also plug them into power, but this allows you to kind of add some interest to your background. So you want to get real fancy. Again, this is a way to do it. And side note, I am going to link all this stuff in the description below as well. So if you're interested in purchasing any of the stuff that I mentioned, I'm gonna make pennies off this, but if you do want to use the links that I have down there, I would appreciate it because that goes a long ways to helping the channel. Otherwise, if you find a cheaper deal somewhere else, use that deal. Next part of this Venn diagram here is audio. So audio, again, is probably the most important part of this whole thing. You need to have good audio. People need to be able to hear you. They need to be able to hear clarity in the audio signal that's coming from your end. If you can't, you get a lot of the same stepping on each other issues, or a lot of the, what'd you say? Can you speak up? No, move a little closer. How does that sound? Oh, it sounds good. Again, it's inefficient. The Borg would not be proud, right? You need to have good audio. Part of that is this type of thing, right? Something you can hook up to either the camera that you have, or you can use USB audio as well. You could use something like this, like the Blue Yeti. Blue Yeti is a great solution for this. They have some pretty cheap snowball microphones. At this point, these have been out for a while, so you could even find these on eBay for even super cheap. In fact, a lot of this stuff you could probably find on eBay for super cheap. The Yeti ones hook up to USB, so you don't have to have any special connections on your computer. It'll connect to your laptop, your desktop, whatever. Connections for your iPad and things like that, if you're doing a broadcast via iPad or even iPhone or your Android, whatever it is. So this is a great solution. This is what I have. I use the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. This is kind of overkill again, but I do the YouTube videos with these, so I need to have nice crispy audio. So that's why I use this. This sits on the cold shoe of your camera and then just plugs into the audio port there and brings in great audio that way. Okay, so we've completed the Venn diagram. We went over the video aspect of things, the lighting aspect of things, and now the audio aspect of things. That will make you a perfect setup for being able to stream on something like Skype, Slack, Zoom, whatever. I lied a little bit. There's one extra piece. If you're going the full USB route and you're using the Blue Yeti, which is USB, and you're using just your Logitech webcam, which is USB, and you just have some lights, you don't really need this extra part. I'm going to put that Venn diagram up here again, and here's the revised one. you're gonna need the middle part, which kind of crosses all of this, and it's what gets the signals from what you're recording into your computer. And you need something like a capture card for this. Now, there's a lot of different options, again, from cheap to expensive. This is a really good option. This is one that I would recommend. I have not unboxed it yet because I'm going to be using it with my GoPro for some overhead shots. But the CamLink 4K, I have a 4K, you can get a 1080p version, much cheaper. The CamLink is great because it will allow you to connect a micro HDMI to your camera and then connect it to your computer and pull it straight into the computer. Because if you think about it, there's no way to really get that signal from your camera into your computer. There's no way for it to transcode it and to make it, appear in something like Skype or Zoom or one of those options. All of those programs have a way to pull up the ability to see what options you have that you can link to and display your video and audio on. And if you don't have anything, even if your camera has a USB connection on it, you might think you can just plug your camera in and then plug it straight into the computer, into your USB, and it would work great. It doesn't work like that. It needs to be able to actually process that and then make it available in something like Skype or one of the other options. So CamLink is definitely a great option. I believe you can get this one for around 120 bucks. Basically, you just plug in the micro HDMI to your camera, and then you plug in the full-size HDMI here, and then it's just a USB connection again to your computer. So it allows it to do all the magic that it needs to do to get everything working and to get your sources appearing in Hangouts and all those other places where it'll pop up as an option to do the display. Now, if you want to get a little bit fancier, of course, I like to show these options. This is what I have. It's the Blackmagic Intensity Pro 4K. And again, they offer all different versions of this. I have the 4K model, so it's a little more expensive because I produce 4K content. But essentially what this does, and I'll put up a little image here on the screen of me installing this, is it just basically plugs into your PCI Express board and your motherboard on your computer. So this will work for either PC or Mac, and essentially it just slides into the PCI slot, and then you're able to plug in everything to the back. It's powered off of your motherboard, so you don't have to worry about where it gets power from. You don't have to worry about overloading your system. If you have something like the CamLink, you can run into some USB power issues. Generally not a problem, but just be aware that that exists. If you use something like this and you plug it into your computer, like just hardwired, then it's essentially able to run just flawlessly forever. So you plug in your HDMI here or whatever source you have and then back into your camera, and then what that will allow you to do here, and I'm going to show a video of this, is this will now show up in something like Teams or something like Zoom, and it's going to show up as an option here for you to select as an available input. Okay, and one more power tip for you here. As you can see here, got a green screen background. Now this one's probably a little overkill for most of you out there. I admit, I bought this for YouTube purposes, so I'm able to cut the background out of things like when I'm doing demonstrations of different tutorials and things like that. Work from home apps like Zoom and Slack and others. I believe Zoom was the first one to do this, to give them credit. You're able to cut the background out of your image and actually replace yourself and put yourself on top of something like a sunset or the ocean or whatever. Just adds a little bit of interest to the call, makes things a little more interesting. A kind of a power tip for this is Zoom specifically, and I believe others have started adopting this as well, will allow you to check a box in the settings that says I want to use my own green screen. And what that will allow you to do is really make sure that those effects look great, because a lot of times they use machine learning in theirs to remove the background. So it's a little hit or miss. You'll see a lot of pixelization. You'll see heads getting cut off. You'll see things happening kind of as people move around. What this does is make sure that that background is crisply removed and it looks great. Okay, that's basically it. We did it again. I can't seem to make a short video for the life of me, but this is all important content, so I really wanted to cover as much of it as I could. I tried to be as quick as I could. Hopefully, if you stuck with me to the end, you're getting value out of this. If you do, hit the like button, subscribe, and definitely hit the bell notification. I'm going to be doing more videos like this in the future. In fact, I'm considering a whole work from home series because I've had such positive feedback on this. One last pro tip for you here before I go, and this one's an important one as well, and you might not think about this. That is your background. You go through all this work, you have a great audio, you have great video, and you have great lighting. That all can very quickly be kind of thrown down the drain if your background doesn't look good. Now, you don't have to have fancy lights, you don't have to have everything perfect, but the important thing is just to make sure you don't have an old pair of underwear laying in the background, or a pile of books, or a pile of clothes, or your trash overflowing, whatever it is. Because strangely enough, when people are on video calls and you're sitting there staring at the Zoom screen of 100 different people, to keep yourself busy if you're not talking on the screen. A lot of the times I'm sitting there looking at other people's backgrounds, and you don't want a bunch of trash. It just makes you look unprofessional, makes you look like a slob. It just draws people's attention from the wrong thing. You're trying to keep your attention here, not on the trash in the background. So last pro tip, and that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next week.